Now, given again, the length of this time, the concern when you hear Dr. Fauci say, well, we probably can't go back to normal life until a vaccine, which would be like 12 months, 18 months, that if things don't open up pretty soon over some gradual reopening with new protocols, all that, there's a concern about social unrest. You're seeing a lot of stores boarded up in San Francisco, Chicago, Detroit, St. Louis. You're seeing more of that. Small businesses affected, especially by theft and other criminal activity. How concerned are you about the social and unrest and criminal activity in an ongoing shutdown?
I mean, I think if we extend a full shutdown, that's a real threat in some of our communities. But I don't think it's limited to that. I think the president's absolutely right. We cannot keep for a long period of time our economy shut down. Just on the public health thing, you know, it means less cancer. Cancer researchers are at home. A lot of the disease researchers who will save lives in the future, that's being held in abeyance. The money that goes into these institutions, whether from philanthropic sources or government sources, is going to be reduced. We will have a weaker healthcare system if we go into a deep depression. So just measured in lives, the cure cannot be worse than the disease. But when you think of everything else, generations of families who have built up businesses for generations in this country, and recent immigrants who have built up businesses, snuffed out, small businesses that may not be able to come back if this goes on too long. So we have to find, after the 30-day period, we have to find a way of allowing businesses to adapt to the situation and figure out how they can best get started. That's not necessarily instantaneously going back to the way life
People are going to be afraid to go out for a long period of time. They're going to be afraid to go to restaurants. Right now we have no freedom of worship, public worship, to gather. We have no real freedom of assembly, not even freedom of movement, given what some of the states are doing. What can you tell our viewers tonight about what the Justice Department will do after this limited period to ensure that our civil liberties are balanced properly against the need to protect the public?
Well, you know, generally speaking, there are occasions where liberties have to be restricted during certain emergencies, such as war, or in this case, a potentially devastating pandemic. But they have to be balanced. Whatever steps you take have to be balanced against the civil liberties of the American people, and it cannot be used as an excuse for broad deprivations of liberty. As things proceed, you know, we're going to be interested in both what the federal government is imposing and also making sure that that's justified, but also what the states do. The states have very broad, as you know, what we call police powers. They have very broad powers that the federal government doesn't have to regulate the lives of their citizens, as long as they don't violate the Constitution. So we'll be keeping a careful eye on that.
Governor Cuomo.
You know, as you know, and as I indicated in my Notre Dame speech, I think religious liberty is the first liberty. It is the foundation of our republic, and a free society depends upon a vibrant religious life among the people. So anytime that's encroached upon by the government, I'm very, very concerned. Again, after this period where you know, we have very strong restrictions in place, hopefully there won't be a need for those kinds of distinctions to be made.
Oh, you think that people are going to have such benevolent approaches? I mean, the left is clearly trying to use this to reshape American society. This is never to let a crisis go to waste. Now we're going to do climate change policy and a massive wealth redistribution for the disparities in health care. That's what all the Democrat politicians are now talking about going forward.
Yeah, I'm concerned about that.
The Gates Foundation are in favor of developing digital certificates that would certify that individuals, American citizens, have an immunity to this virus and potentially other viruses going forward, to then facilitate travel and work and so forth. What are your thoughts from a civil libertarian point of view about these types of what some would say tracking mechanisms that would be adopted going forward to reopen our broader economy?
Yeah, I'm very concerned about the slippery slope in terms of continuing encroachments on personal liberty. I do think during the emergency, appropriate, reasonable steps are fine.
But a digital certificate to show who has recovered or been tested recently, or when we have a vaccine who has of people who've received it. That's his answer on Reddit, Ask Me Anything. They had a little forum.
I'd be a little concerned about that, and the tracking of people and so forth, generally, especially going forward over a long period of time.
Are you surprised at how wildly partisan a response to this pandemic has become in the United States? I know everything's political, but this is about saving lives and saving the broader life of America. And yet, from a drug like hydroxychloroquine that's been around for 65 years, 70 years, to other measures the president's taken, working with Democrat governors quite well, looks like, it never seems to be good enough.
No, I have been surprised at it. In fact, it's very disappointing because I think the president went out at the beginning of this thing and really was statesmanlike, trying to bring people together, working with all the governors, keeping his patience as he got these snarky gotcha questions from the White House media pool. And the stridency of the partisan attacks on him has gotten higher and higher, and it's really disappointing to see. And the politicization of decisions like the hydroxychloroquine has been amazing to me. Before the president said anything about it, there was fair and balanced coverage of this very promising drug, and the fact that it had such a long track record that the risks were pretty well known. And as soon as he said something positive about it, the media's been on a jihad to discredit the drug. It's quite strange.
There's a lot of concern.
China is a very serious threat to the United States, geopolitically, economically, militarily, and a threat to the integrity of our institutions, given their ability to influence things.
And yet our premier academic institutions, Harvard University, our top schools across the country.
But it's not just universities. I mean, universities are part of the problem. But a lot of American businesses, just for short-term profit, or what they see as a short-term profit, they know over the long run it's not going to be long-term benefit to their business. But just for short-term gain, they are perhaps not doing what is necessary in the long-term interests of the United States.